A great way to get started being more active on LinkedIn is simply just engaging, liking content that you think is valuable and that you think is helpful.
Right.
Maybe send somebody a DM saying like, "Hey, I really like that. That was great," and just wanted to let you know, like, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And also commenting. It's like the baby version of a post. I say, like, a lot of times I'll like comment and then I'll be like, I could probably expound on that, and I'll just like kind of like copy and paste it over to like a Google Doc where I just keep ideas. Some of them get posted, some of them don't. But
Nice.
But yeah, it's a great place to start getting engaged and showing, you know, the authority and thought leadership that you're trying to possess and trying to communicate with the people that you're trying to serve.
Good morning and welcome to The Underbrush, a Liger Studios podcast where we uncover the secrets of marketing. I'm your host, Dakota Ward. I'm joined here this morning by an old friend, a new digital storyteller over at Samaritan and a rising star in the marketing community. It's Tyler Burch.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Dakota. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, I was pleasantly surprised that you guys are not too far away from me. I was expecting a little longer drive, so
Yeah.
happy to be here, man.
I was expecting a shorter drive and it turned into longer, so we're starting a little late this morning, but that's all right.
No
So,
issue.
well, Tyler, obviously we go way back to being kids.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's crazy to be like, you know, in a room, getting to host for you on the podcast. But why don't you give us a little bit of an insight? Tell us your background and kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, man. And it is funny that we're both here as young professionals now because Dakota kind of mentioned that we knew each other growing up from a young age. We used to have some family trips to Six Flags. We'd get the whole gang together and go run amok at the park. But yeah, a little bit about my journey of how I got to where I am with Samaritan. I graduated from Mercer University back in 2017 and actually ended up working in campus ministry for 2 years, which gave me some really unique outlooks at communication, I guess, just because it's a very different realm from like the business world, but
Sure.
You still have to understand at the core how to communicate with people. So that was really interesting. And then I moved on and started working for a group called Board Active over at the Battery here in Atlanta. And I was actually doing that still from Mississippi, where I was doing campus ministry. But eventually I came over around May, right as soon as coronavirus came up, and then worked there for, I don't know, maybe another like half a year. Until September, and then it just came time to make a move, and fortunately I had my founder Jonathan Kumar reach out to me over LinkedIn saying, hey, we've got this position for digital storyteller. It's something that I think you might be a good fit for. You should give it a look. And I can't remember exactly the wording, but somewhere in the DM he had kind of mentioned that like, hey, you're going to be responsible for raising money, and I was like,
Wow.
I'm out. Like, I don't want any part of that. I did my share of raising money over at campus ministry. It's hard. It's not fun.
Yeah.
And so I almost just didn't even look at the job description or like look at their website or anything. But I was like, I'll just give it a look over, and then went down the rabbit hole and really liked what I saw. So Samaritan's basically a mobile app that allows people that are currently homeless to get the financial and social support they need, and there's some innovations with the way that the mobile app works that allows people like you and me that might be able to give to do it in a way that's more secure, and that you can like tell your impact a little bit better than you would otherwise.
Right.
So super cool.
So are you guys have already developed the app?
Yeah, so the app's been around, since like 2017 maybe.
Okay.
Samaritan's based out of Seattle, so I'm just working remote from Atlanta. But yeah, we launched a 1 or 2 year pilot in Seattle back in like 2017, and saw some really good fruit from that. And then since then have been rapidly expanding this year. We're currently in. We're going to be, by April 5th, we'll be in 6 cities. So
Wow.
we got a couple launches here in Portland and oh shoot, what's the other one? I should know this. LA.
Okay.
Coming up, so we're really excited.
That's awesome. So the title is Digital Storyteller. Now we're all about unique and bizarre story titles, excuse me, here at Liger. I pretend to be a wizard of possibility.
Yes.
So it's good to get the conversation going. Like, well, what does that mean? So what does digital storyteller mean?
Yeah, definitely. Digital storyteller is, it can be a lot of things as far as the day-to-day, but really what I center my focus around is the idea that we have Samaritan members, these people experiencing homelessness, that a lot of times once you find yourself in homelessness, you have what's called social decay. You lose a lot of relationships. There's a large amount of distrust that's sent your way by people that haven't met you simply because you're on the street and there is a stigma around it. And so my job as a digital storyteller is really to tell the stories of these people, to allow people that aren't experiencing homelessness to see that not all people enter homelessness because of bad decisions they made, though that is the case for some. And they made some decisions they regret. There's plenty of people that experience homelessness because of medical debt. I've seen stories of people that had a house fire and it wasn't insured, and so they lost everything.
Wow.
And then also, single income homes in big cities like LA where rent is just really high. So
Sure.
you see a lot of different things, and my job is really to tell their story and to help people to understand that there are solutions coming to the market and to the population at large that are going to better enable people to support people experiencing homelessness in a way that's not only financially more secure but also socially more responsible.
Yeah. So are you interviewing some of these people to get their stories, or how are you finding out these stories?
So that's a great question. So the way we work is we have partners, partnering nonprofits in any city that we launch in. So we won't go to a city without having a partnering nonprofit, because we like to think that they know their city, they know the people, and they know the homeless scene in that city. And so they're the ones best fit to figure out how they should go about it and who needs the support and things like that. So we allow our partners to basically present Samaritan to their clients that are experiencing homelessness and say, here's what Samaritan is, here's how it helps you, and here's kind of some of the finer details about Samaritan. Do you have any interest? And if they say yes, they'll go ahead and then start saying like, okay, like give me your story, like what's your experience been in life, like how did you come to this situation, what are your hopes, and what does your future hold. And so every story is put on the app through the web portal by our partners, but my job as far as spreading that story, it's more of a distribution than it is like, okay, like
physically writing this
down. And so in our marketing materials and in a myriad of different ways, we go about trying to tell their stories and to allow people to grow in compassion for people that can use it.
Yeah. So would it be safe to say that the majority of this is really just about educating the public on what's actually going on in these people's lives?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the best marketing is teaching versus telling. So you're teaching everybody else that doesn't know what's going on outside of Samaritan, like what you guys are doing, and then how that actually helps some of these people.
Yeah, and like I'm still learning. I'm like 4 months in maybe,
Okay.
and up to this point, like I'm still continuing to learn. Like there's so many nuances of homelessness and becoming unhoused, and the ways that you can get support, the ways that you need support. I've learned a ton. Like for instance, one of the biggest things I learned was the idea that giving a warm meal and giving a coat is a good thing. Like those are needs, but one, not every person experiencing homelessness needs those things. Like some are able to get those, whether they have, some kind of meal voucher at some nonprofit where they're able to get fed or what have you. But the hard part about receiving those, like receiving a warm meal or some kind of tangible good, is that it becomes incredibly hard to get out of homelessness. It just makes homelessness a little bit more manageable and allows them to get to, the next day or the next little step. But we've seen that a cash infusion is incredibly valuable because, and like on the profiles of our Samaritan members, you see their story, but you also see their financial needs and their goals, kind of their roadmap for how to exit homelessness and get into housing. That they've talked with their case manager from our partner nonprofits to assess, what do I really need? What do I need to do next in order to get out? And if you look on the app, there's a lot of them that are like, hey, I need a security deposit. I'm really close to getting into housing, and like I need an extra month of rent that I've worked really hard to be able to get to a point where I can pay rent, but now it's like I need a security deposit, I need apartment application money, I need a bus pass so I can continue to see my case manager, so I can get options about housing. So yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of nuances to it.
That is really cool. And you'll have to flatten my learning curve here, but so it's a mobile app. Is it normal nowadays for homeless to have phones?
That's another great question. It's a lot more common than you would think. And I remember growing up as a little kid, just unaware and maybe a little bit naive and had some growing myself to do, but thinking like, oh wow, if a homeless person has a phone, that means they're irresponsible because you shouldn't be buying a phone. You should be finding a way to get a job or to get housing.
Yeah.
And especially today and well before this too, pretty much at the birth of the iPhone, like it just became more and more important to have a cell phone, not only for connecting to things like services, but more importantly to being able to work. You need a way to call in sick. You need a way to receive an email saying, hey, we're actually changing this part of the construction site today, and so like you're off, and things like that, that make it incredibly important to have a phone. And this part I'm not as well versed in, but I'm pretty sure sometime during Obama's tenure, there was some kind of bill put in place that helped enable people experiencing homelessness to get access to a phone a little bit easier. I think with like a small prepaid plan.
Okay.
And then if they go over those minutes, they can pay for more if they need them. But but thankfully, as far as the mobile app goes, they don't have to have access to the mobile app in order to get the help from the mobile app. The mobile app is more consumer facing. So it's something that if I wasn't working for Samaritan, and I still do this anyways, but I can go on the app and look around and read stories and see what resonates and see needs and give, and then also direct message the Samaritan members and be like, hey, like I hope you're doing well, or like, hey, like I'm downtown, I'm not sure if you're nearby, but if you want to go catch a meal, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Part of that social relationship that we've kind of been talking about a little bit, and there's probably a lot more to that, but yeah, they don't need a mobile app. It's for the consumer. It's for people like you and me that are resourced enough to give and to encourage. And then they can use the mobile app to like see things, but definitely not required. The important part is they continue to have a relationship with their case manager,
sure,
so that they're able to say like, oh hey, like I see that I got $30 for interview clothes. Can you transfer those funds from my Samaritan account over to like a debit card or restricted debit card that nonprofit partners provide a lot of times, and that'll allow them to go spend money at Kohl's to go get interview clothes, but it will keep them from going to 7-Eleven and buying snacks or cigarettes or alcohol. So it gives the average city goer a little bit of confidence that the money I give is going to be spent well, because it's being managed by this nonprofit, and it's being entrusted to the Samaritan member to get what they need, but also to ensure that they're getting what they need.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, what a cool business to get into, kind of out of the blue, and right up your alley as far as just your personality and your servant's heart that I know just because I know you so well.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, what a blessing! How cool to be in that.
It's really awesome, man. It's something, and it makes me even more glad that I ended up taking a look at the job description and stuff, because I was like, oh, this is like a pretty cool idea. And like the more and more I dug into it, like I just got on like a rabbit hole down there, like down Samaritan's Medium blog, and was just like, wow, like this is really intricate, and like there's a lot of like, potential obstacles that they navigate really well with the way that they operate. So it's been really cool.
Speaking about operations, one of the points that you wanted to touch on was creating a user experience that builds brand and community. So bringing it back to marketing, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so for Samaritan, we have a new feature, relatively new, called Teams that kind of play into the community aspect of our brand and really build hopefully a place where people that don't know each other but that have the same heart and compassion for people experiencing homelessness to join together and to basically ensure that this person sees their way off of the streets and is able to enter housing or find employment or go enter addiction treatment, different things like that we call life-changing outcomes.
Okay.
Things that make a considerable impact in somebody's journey home. And so I think that having a community aspect at Samaritan is really, really critical because we talk a lot about the social decay that our Samaritan members experience. And so a huge part of the way that people get off of the streets is not only financial, though that helps, but there's a lot of people facing mental issues and things like depression, anxiety, as a result of not having the security of a home. And so having a way for the community at large to be able to communicate with somebody that doesn't have a home, they don't have a place they're locked into all the time. That can change, that can move, they can lose their stuff, they can be stolen from. And so there's a lot of variables that leave them pretty mobile, and you don't always know where they're going to be. And so I could give $20 to Paul on the street, and there's plenty of people that do that, but you have no assurance that you're ever even going to see Paul again. How do I know what happens to Paul? How do I know where Paul's going? And so the app is a really great way to be able to see Paul's progress and to be able to continue to keep an open line of communication with Paul, because I think a lot of people have a great deal of compassion for people in that situation. But to this, like up until this solution, there's been a much harder time trying to get connected and stay connected.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it gives it some sort of metric, right? Because anything in success, you don't know if it's a success or a failure without some sort of measurement. So, being able to track that and see Paul has now got a job at X company and he's doing well, and he's on his way to getting a home, and he's actually off the streets, and so the money that I gave him got on the bus ticket to get to the job. Now he's got the job, and so it adds a little bit of tangibility to it. And so that's so interesting. And the branding aspect of it with Samaritan, obviously that comes from I would assume a biblical context with the Good Samaritan.
Yep, definitely.
So the brand is there, the brand is strong.
Yeah.
I'd be curious as to how you're continuing to grow that, at least just on your end.
Yeah, so I think a big part of how I'm trying to grow it is allowing people to, and so like we call our users Samaritans.
Okay.
So anybody using the app, anybody giving money, anybody sending encouragement is we call a Samaritan. With the idea being that in the biblical context of the Good Samaritan story, there was a number of people that passed alongside somebody that was on the side of the road that needed help, and that was having trouble helping themselves too.
Sure.
And so eventually a Good Samaritan passes by and takes of his own financial resources, but more importantly, takes of his own social capacity. He was on the way somewhere and elected to stop, help this man, get him up, and take him into an inn and pay for his stay there, to make sure that he could get into good health and carry on his way. And so in the same way, we want our brand to align with that idea, that there's people that are having trouble getting help. The system's broken, and all systems are broken.
Sure.
There's just no perfect solutions. But there are ways that we can combat that, and there are ways that we can work against what's not working to try and have better outcomes. And so that's a huge part of where we are with our brand and what we want to be.
Yeah. I don't remember where I heard this, but the issue with a perfect system is that the components within the system are imperfect, meaning you and I, people, are incapable of being perfect, and therefore there's no such thing as a perfect system. So the best way to perfect the system is to work on the components that are imperfect, the people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, well, being in marketing, and something that struck me as very interesting in here is you talk about working with no marketing budget. How do you do that?
Yeah, I should have clarified. I meant to text you before this, but
Yeah.
I was like when we were going over some of the stuff, but I was like, I should clarify when I say no marketing budget, like we have marketers on the team that we're paying, such as
Okay.
myself. We
Yeah.
have, different platforms, like we have an email platform and
Okay.
different things like that.
Yeah.
So we do have a marketing budget. I should have said we don't have a paid ad budget.
Okay.
And so like in the mobile app industry and space, a lot of times it's really critical to have a paid media budget to acquire users, and you'll hear in marketing, you'll hear words like customer acquisition cost, like how much does it cost to pay to get a user, and then like from that, can you scale it, because is the lifetime value of your user, how much that user is making you in money, is it worth it? And like if it is, scale the ads up because it's a profitable move. But
Sure.
with the way that our model works, we don't make revenue from when people give. So if I give $10 to Paul, $10 is going to Paul.
Okay.
So we make no money there. The way that we make our money is working with our partners. And there's a couple different ways that they can fund that contract. It's typically a year-long contract, and the number of clients that we serve can change depending on how many they need or how many they're able to source financially. And so we make our money from, let's say we're working with a group called City Care in Oklahoma City. We make, $25,000 over the course of a year because we're serving 50 clients there. And so it's not something that we can scale when like, oh, we got another user, that's great. They're giving, $100 a month. That's awesome.
Right.
And that doesn't help us make money directly. Obviously, you need users that are giving and that are, sending encouragement and giving messages of hope in order to get the partners interested.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like just because we're getting users that are giving a lot of money, like that's not making us more profitable, and that's not helping us to achieve revenue goals. And so because of that, you can't really scale paid ads because the lifetime value of a user for us is technically zero. We make no money from a user by giving. And so it makes it really interesting. It's a lot of organic outreach and working with different volunteer groups and churches and businesses to see like do they have interest in being a part of this solution, and as well as just creating that community and brand that empowers people to join our mission.
Yeah. Speaking of organic marketing, I see you all the time on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's either a like or it's a comment or it's a post that you put on there, and so I'm personally impressed. But just at the volume of engagement that's on there, do you have a secret there? I mean, that's what this podcast is about, uncovering those secrets.
I do. So I was in the B2B space before I was with Samaritan. I was with a company called Board Active, and we were in the mobile app industry, but we were specifically serving businesses. And so LinkedIn is obviously the playground for B2B.
Oh yeah.
And I used to think LinkedIn was the biggest joke. Like in college and even just out of college, I was like, LinkedIn is such a waste of time, but like they say you have to be on there, and like this is not serving me any purpose. I'm never gonna find a job that way. The irony. And eventually around March, right as soon as coronavirus was really building up, you have to be on LinkedIn to some level in B2B.
Oh yeah.
It's just kind of critical. I'm sure your job does a lot of that. And so eventually I kind of was like surfing around. I found this guy named Chris Walker, who's a marketer and a great B2B marketer to follow if you are on LinkedIn and interested in seeing content that kind of ups your game. And eventually I was like, like he's using LinkedIn really well, and like the things that he's saying, like I'm buying.
Yeah.
This isn't snake oil or anything. And so I started getting a lot more active on LinkedIn. Especially because we were working to try and source more leads. It's always critical, marketing drives sales, and my founder from Board Active loved that phrase, marketing drives sales, marketing drives sales. And so our job was to get a bunch of leads and to get qualified leads. And
Sure.
so especially in March at that point, LinkedIn was experiencing something that is super common for social networks, where they ratchet up organic reach. TikTok's doing it now because they're still relatively new. It used to be great on Facebook and Instagram,
Right.
but since then they've developed and have become more of a pay to play, which totally makes sense. You know, that's their business model, that eventually they ratchet up the amount of ads and cut down on your reach so that you're kind of forced into that.
Yep.
That makes sense. And so right now LinkedIn's at a point where it's still open season. And so especially back in March. And so I just made an effort to try and post every day, and I failed all the time. Like, I think I only ever got to, like, you know, every other day pretty much, but the dividends were great. And a couple big secrets I guess I would give to growing your LinkedIn, but more importantly to like getting value out of your LinkedIn, is to just give value first. LinkedIn is a platform where people are incredibly helpful. They love to help. I reach out to people all the time. We were having an issue with some of our push notifications, and so I just reached out to people. I just like searched up like push notifications, and Firebase is what we use. And so I just like searched that in the bar and then found people that looked like they were active on LinkedIn and was like, hey, like, I'm kind of like having trouble with some push notifications right now, and I can tell that you've got some experience, and I'd like to get like your advice or maybe your opinion on what's going on. And I've had multiple people reach out like, totally, like, I'd love to help. And so being proactive in that is something that's going to get you farther ahead on the curve, because it's really easy to ask for help all the time. It's not something that people have a lot, where people are like, hey, like, do you need any help with something? And it's like, well, actually, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So trying to be proactive in that, I found, is super helpful, because it just builds a genuine relationship that,
Sure.
that like with your friends, you're not like counting like who did the last favor, because you're like, I know this person's got my back and I've got theirs. It doesn't matter if I help them out on the next 10 things before, you know, I receive their help or their advice. Like, I know that they're going to give it when I need it. And so in the same way, when you're trying to form a relationship with strangers that you're probably not even in the same city as, it's really important just to show that, like, hey, like, I'm not concerned with, you know, making sure it's, you know, a scoreboard. Like, let me help you out, and then, like, if that was of value to you, I'm sure you'll help me out in the future.
Yeah.
And so you build a lot of really strong relationships, and yeah, it's super valuable.
Yeah, and it starts with credibility, because before you can really start those relationships with people that you don't know, especially online, you know, is this a real person? Do they really know what they're talking about? And then is there going to be any kind of value swap here? And so being able to build that credibility on the front end, I think, is so important.
Yeah, and that's where posting comes into play. And like, for me, I didn't start posting immediately when I started getting active on LinkedIn, because I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, like, what do I want to even talk about? Like, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. But a great way to get started being more active on LinkedIn is simply just engaging, liking content that you think is valuable and that you think is helpful.
Right.
Maybe send somebody a DM saying like, hey, I really like that. That was great, and just wanted to let you know, like, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And also commenting. It's like the baby version of a post, I say. Like, a lot of times I'll like comment, and then I'll be like, I could probably expound on that, and I'll just like kind of like copy and paste it over to like a Google Doc, where I just keep ideas. Some of them get posted, some of them don't. But
nice.
But yeah, it's a great place to start getting engaged and showing, you know, the authority and thought leadership that you're trying to possess, and trying to communicate with the people that you're trying to serve.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is full of you know, great things like that. It's also full of competitors.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that you wanted to talk about was when your competitors are out there, but, you know, what do you do when they're also the people that you want to see succeed?
Yeah, and so that's really unique to our situation at Samaritan, and I say the word competitor loosely, because, you know, we're not competing in the same space inherently. Like, we serve people that are experiencing homelessness, but when I say like a competitor, I really just mean like people have X amount of money to give, that they're interested in giving to causes that they find worthy.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're one of them, but there's a lot of them out there. And so how do we ensure that like we're getting the support that we need from people, you have to capture that market. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'd really hate to see, some really other great, noble, worthy causes not get the support they need. And so it's just navigating in grace and allowing yourself to just put the blinders on and say, like, look, we've got a mission here and we want to accomplish it. And like, we also don't feel the need to like, run a smear campaign or shoot somebody else down.
That's right.
And so it's something that is really unique to our situation. And I think that, like, should the day come where I leave Samaritan, it'll be valuable in that. And I think Peter Thiel, one of the little PayPal Mafia guys, that was with Elon Musk over at PayPal.
Yeah.
He has a book called 0 to 1, and he kind of talks about, like, you want to be in a space with no competitors, because once you have competitors, you start to just pay attention to them and you start to look at what they're doing and make incremental improvements, but you don't ever make that 0 to 1 jump of like sizable improvements and innovations that allow you to really move forward. And so putting the blinders up and not focusing on your competitors or like the people in your market that you feel like you need to be worried about, or that like their outcomes directly concern yours. When you're able to, set that aside and really just focus on like, what are we trying to do here? Where are we trying to go?
Right.
It's really helpful.
Yeah, that's like self-improvement rule number 1 is, let the outside do with the outside and focus on the inside. Because if you're comparing to them all the time, that changes all the time. There's no metric to pay attention to. But when you focus on yourself or you focus on your own company, that's when you start to see the progress and the improvement.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, cool. So we're getting a little strapped for time, but I did want to give the chance to say it's been so awesome having you on here.
Yeah,
but
man.
what's the best way that viewers can get in contact with you? How do they get involved with Samaritan and get into a giving mindset?
Yeah, definitely. So the best way to contact me is LinkedIn. And lately I've been super bad about responding to my DMs, but if you DM me, just tell me like, hey, I listened to the podcast and you said you were going to do it, so own up. But the best way to get involved with Samaritan and to join our mission is really to download the mobile app first. Take a look, read the stories, see the financial needs, see their goals, what they want to accomplish so that they can get off the streets and enter their home. And then, give as you're able. In my campus ministry, I use the phrase often, if you're willing and able. So if you're willing to give, there needs to be a heart and a level of compassion there. And then if you're able to give, not everybody financially can give. Some people are strapped with massive debt. Some people are, with coronavirus especially, like some people are fighting for a job and a career. And so we understand, but there's 2 ways that we like to say you can give. And we have a metric called Active Samaritans that we talk about a lot behind the scenes internally, where we want to see people that are consistently on a month-to-month basis or a week-to-week basis that are committing one, monthly act of kindness, essentially, at least. And so that looks like giving, but it also looks like sending messages of encouragement and forming relationships with these people, because again, the social decay, a lot of them don't have people that are on their team, so to speak. They're trying to fight this on their own. And if you've ever been in a situation where you needed to figure something out and you needed somebody else's help, like hopefully you were able to get it, but these people aren't always able to. It's a much more difficult battle. And so give financially if you can, but more importantly, just give your time, like the Good Samaritan in the story that we referenced. Give your time, give your hope that you have, and share it with them and continue to, build them up.
Yeah, that's so important in any relationship. Anybody can give money.
Yeah.
Right. But it's so much harder to give your time. And we inherently know that, right?
Yeah.
So like, you sending me $20 to go out and get lunch is great, but if you come eat lunch with me, that means a lot more. Yeah.
Especially just because like there's so many different ways that we've seen Samaritans helping Samaritan members, and it goes beyond giving and it goes beyond even messaging. Sometimes it looks like connecting them with somebody that maybe operates a construction site where it's like, hey, this group needs construction workers, or giving job training or mock interviews or there's just a whole host of ways that people can support people experiencing homelessness. And we've found that because of the way that, we, transfer the money and the funds are managed by these case managers and these nonprofits, that it allows, or it attracts, I should say, people experiencing homelessness that actually want to get off the streets and be a member of society that contributes and that creates good outcomes for everybody else too. And so when you're supporting people like that, you'll find that they're a lot of times really receptive to receiving help outside of money. And so there's a lot of ways that you can give, and time and effort are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tyler, it's been such a pleasure having you on this morning. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to hang out, but safe travels. I know you're moving today, so good luck with that. Guys, always on the move. But this is the Underbrush Podcast. Again, I'm your host. I was joined here this morning by such a good friend, Tyler Burch. Thanks for joining the show.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.